Ever wonder if diplomatic immunity really works as a sort of get-out-of-jail-free card for any and all crimes committed by diplomats? Well, wonder no more. As it turns out, technically, yes, diplomatic immunity grants diplomats and any other agreed-upon persons, usually said diplomats' close family and staff, blanket immunity from all local laws of the host country they happen to be staying in. Diplomats can't be arrested, forced to testify in court, sued, or made to pay taxes, and any attempt to do so in anything but the most extreme cases is generally ill-advised. In rare cases where nations have gone ahead and done this anyway, this usually results in something of an international incident, and in some cases retribution against one's own nation's diplomats or citizens residing in the other country at the time. This said, if someone with diplomatic immunity attempts to endanger public safety or the like, law enforcement are allowed to intervene in this situation to prevent a crime from occurring. It's just that the diplomat in question can't be arrested for having attempted whatever criminal act. It's also worthy of explicitly mentioning that only relatively high-ranking officials enjoy such blanket immunity. With a few exceptions, lower-ranking officials instead have a type of diplomatic immunity called functional immunity, which covers them for any crimes committed when performing their jobs. If they commit a crime when going about their non-work life, however, they can be prosecuted the same as anyone else. It's also noteworthy that, unlike high-ranking officials, this immunity does not extend to their families. Now, you might think from this that there must be a slew of diplomats going around smuggling drugs, attempting to kill police officers nearing retirement, and drowning their own personal secretaries when they become a little too close to an officer. And in some sense, you'd be correct. There have indeed been diplomats that have done at least one of those things. However, the reality is most diplomats toe the line pretty closely, as to do otherwise could see them not only potentially lose their job, but also get into some pretty hot water back home. That said, there are some minor crimes that diplomats on the whole seem happy to leverage their diplomatic immunity to get away with pretty much daily. Most notably, things like parking tickets, not paying rent or debts made in their host country, etc. For example, thanks to the headquarters of the United Nations being in New York City, it turns out the city is currently owed in excess of $20 million in unpaid parking tickets from diplomats from various countries, with Egyptian diplomats leading the pack, owing the city an astounding $2 million. All this said, it turns out that even diplomats representing completely corrupt governments, who couldn't care less if their diplomats are smuggling drugs, so long as it's lining the pockets of the politicians back home, they still must be a little careful, given that as part of the Vienna Convention, any host nation can choose to declare a given diplomat persona non grata. After this is done, the diplomat must leave the country in short order, though they are given some buffer time to do this. If they choose to instead stick around, the host nation can then consider that they have forfeited their diplomatic immunity and prosecute them to their heart's content. Another potential consequence to diplomats abusing their immunity is that the host nation can appeal to the diplomat's home state to revoke their immunity, or appeal to them to prosecute the diplomat themselves. And occasionally the home states do acquiesce to these requests in one way or the other. Moving on to other crimes, again, diplomatic immunity does indeed extend to covering everything from tax evasion, avoiding paying rent, mortgage, child support, or other debts, to even the most heinous of crimes, including murder, enslaving someone, gang rape, kidnapping, extreme physical abuse, drug smuggling, threatening a terrorist attack, and even sex with minors. All crimes, by the way, various diplomats have committed in the past. On top of this sort of blanket immunity, a much less well-known right afforded to diplomats is the ability to carry something known as a diplomatic bag, or diplomatic pouch. The idea behind this is to allow diplomats to move sensitive information across international borders freely. Noteworthy here is that despite the name, a diplomat can declare anything from a simple paper envelope to a shipping container to be a diplomatic bag. Like with diplomatic immunity, the concept of diplomatic pouches is open to abuse, with diplomats in the past using them to smuggle drugs, weapons, and all manner of illicit things across international borders. Even humans, such as in 1984 when a man named Umara Diko was kidnapped in London in an attempt to get him back to Nigeria, where he could be killed by the government. Thankfully for Diko, a man named Charles Morrow suspected a diplomatic crate about to be shipped out of the country contained Diko. He then found a way around the issue of not being able to inspect diplomatic bags. Morrow states, to qualify as a diplomatic bag, they clearly had to be marked with the words diplomatic bag, and they had to be accompanied by an accredited courier with the appropriate documentation. It was fair to say they had a Nigerian diplomat. I'd seen his passport, but the crates weren't marked diplomatic bag. Using this fact, even though the diplomat was trying to invoke the rules surrounding diplomatic bags, Mara was able to safely ignore the request and ordered the crates to be opened where they found the kidnapped Nigerian. However, again, this is something of an extreme example, and diplomats are generally charged by their home nations to do their best to follow the laws of the lands they are made a diplomat in, lest they suffer consequences with their home nation, or the home nation to allow the host nation to prosecute the individual themselves.